Okay, let's get started. Welcome, everybody. So as you can see on the screen, we're going to start our webinar on why Jira Service Management outshines legacy systems in modern IT. So you should be in for a good hour here today. Before we get started with the content, I just want to go over some housekeeping items right away. Number one, yes, we are recording. So that means if you unfortunately have to drop halfway through, or you love the webinar so much you want to send it to someone in your organization, we will be providing the recording to everyone who signed up for the webinar today. So that will be shared following the conclusion. So give us a day or two and you should get that in your email. And then of course, questions will be answered at the end. So there is a Q&A section in the Zoom webinar prompt. You should see it on your screen. Feel free to ask questions throughout. You don't have to worry, you don't have to keep it to the end, but at the end of the webinar today, we will have that dedicated Q&A session. So your questions will be addressed right at the end. And then next, let's get right into our panelists. So as you might have seen in the abstract, we've got a nice group of panelists today. And I'll start with an introduction on myself. I'm the moderator. My name is Andrew Bauman. I'm the Director of Enterprise Solutions at ISOS Technology. I also have the privilege of working in this industry for the last 8 or 9 years, specifically in consulting on Atlassian tools, around the ITSM, ESM kind of platform and strategies. So I'll be editing some color as we go, but you're mostly here to listen to these experts. And so let's do a left to right intro. Walt, why don't you get us started?
Absolutely. Thank you for the introduction, Andrew. I'm Walt. I'm the Enterprise Solutions Manager here at ISOS. I have a background working at ServiceNow, both on the corporate and federal sector, and very nice to meet you all today.
Thank you, Walt. Amanda, you're up next.
Yeah, thanks. Amanda Bast here. I work at Atlassian as a solutions architect. My background is actually in 8 years of consulting on the Sharewell product.
Awesome. Thank you, Amanda. And last but certainly not least, Bill Hall, why don't you take us away?
Cool. Appreciate it, Andrew. So my name is Bill Hall. I'm the Director of IT at Applied Systems. About 20 years experience in the industry, both running internal IT for organizations as well as doing consulting in the workplace technology space. And I'm here because I've actually done the migration from ServiceNow to JSM. So providing some firsthand experience.
Thank you, Bill. And funny that you just said that, because I think the first question might be very applicable for you to speak to. And for those of you now kind of getting settled in the webinar, the basic framework, the basic idea we have is that we have a bunch of questions and Bill kind of represents our customer experience, right? Bill's done this, as you just heard in his intro. And so usually we'll let Bill speak to his experience in any one of these topics, and then we'll have Walt and Amanda address from the industry perspective, either from ISOS as Walt or from the vendor as Amanda. And so Bill, we'll get started with you and let's get started with that kind of initial first topic, right? Let's talk about why you moved, what that situation was like, what was that like at Applied System, right? And then we'll go from there with that color.
Yeah, absolutely. So at Applied Systems, we were on ServiceNow, and we actually had kind of 3 primary platforms that we were using to kind of organize and coordinate work across our entire company. So we had our sales organization and support organizations. They're working in Salesforce. We had our development organizations and product. They were working within Jira real heavily. And then our operations, IT teams, they were working within ServiceNow. And we had basically a ton of challenges as far as trying to coordinate data going across the systems. Customers would make requests, it would go to dev, it would go to operations, and account managers trying to figure out what was going on where was just a nightmare across 3 different systems. We were also coming up on a renewal within ServiceNow, and we were making the decision to really invest a lot more in maturing our organizations from an IT perspective. So in addition to our renewal, we were looking at bringing on new capabilities like CMDB, expanding some of our reporting capabilities within ServiceNow. And what we were finding is that everything that we wanted to do within ServiceNow came with a real hefty price tag. Couple that with, like a lot of organizations, our ServiceNow team, we were trying to manage ServiceNow within our service desk leadership, in addition to having a third-party outsourced provider doing the actual kind of development work. And all of this kind of came together to where we just weren't able to keep up with the requests that were coming through for ServiceNow. It really required a lot more dedicated focus and effort for us to make all the changes that the business needed to really derive value out of it. And as we were looking at new modules, it was just super, super expensive. So all these things kind of came together for us to say, hey, maybe ServiceNow isn't necessarily the right platform for us, and kicked us off to start exploring and learning other products.
Yeah, Bill, it's really just a common thing that I hear across the industry. Really, sometimes a lot of these different corporations come to ServiceNow looking for the best in the product, but it doesn't really match up when it's time to scale. And really, Atlassian, along with ISOs, we come with a lot of those learning hours to really help drive some of that value after that adoption, to help some really as a solution to some of those things that you were talking about. And of course, one of my main, really factors when it comes to some of these, conversations that we have with some of our clients is cost. It's the backbone of every business, really saving for some of those budgets, making sure you have more money to invest in your teams. And when working with ServiceNow, that can just be extremely hard with their high integration costs, and really just their high different license costs and things like that, along with the multiple of really some of those integrations. So definitely understand what you're going through there. But I would love to hear from, some of the rest of our audience. Andrew, if you want to go ahead and move into our next poll.
Absolutely. Surprise, there's a poll. We'd like to hear from you on a similar topic, right? So poll number 1 is, what is the biggest challenge you face with your current ITSM platform? That should have just popped up right on your screen. And I'll give you a minute or two to fill that out. There should be 4 selection items there. Of course, let us know if you can't see it. And of course, if you have an option here that isn't displayed, feel free to throw that in the Q&A, ask a question to that, what have you. But we tried to keep it 4 general buckets of biggest challenges. And I'll give that just 1 more minute. We're at the 10-minute mark, so I'll give it till the 11-minute mark, and then we'll look at the results.
Bill, if you had to say what one of your biggest challenges were, which would you say of those 4 you would choose?
So I flow between the bottom 2. So the basically high maintenance costs as well as poor user experience. So my view on ServiceNow is there's a reason it's got so much market share. It's got some good capabilities, but oh my gosh, you really have to pay for it, and you have to have a large team to really get the value out of ServiceNow. I mean, I've seen solid implementations, but it is you really, really have to invest a lot into getting what you need out of it. And those were, when I was making my budget requests out to leadership, our company was making decisions to invest the money elsewhere.
Yeah, a lot of those training hours, certifications, courses, it's a never-ending list. Definitely.
Yeah, and just people, the amount of people that it takes to keep the platform running.
Yeah.
So it looks like the most people voted for poor user experience. Then the next 2 are tied with high maintenance costs and lack of automation. So yeah, poor user experience. The JSM UI, the Atlassian product UI is a much more user-friendly experience. Consistency across our products. We are always looking for ways that we can consolidate and make things easier for your technicians and your customers to be able to use in one place and not have to swivel around. And then just in general, by adopting a more modern way of working and a modern way of organizing your team's work into projects will be a big shift from some of your legacy tools such as ServiceNow, with the whole goal of just getting the most priority work to the people that are going to be able to fix that issue or address that issue quickly. So that more modern interface and the way that we organize work in JSM is going to really improve your user experience.
100%. Okay, let's get on to question number 2, Bill. So we talked about kind of the why companies would want to move away, right? Bill, why you specifically? And then obviously with the poll question there, let's talk about the benefits of switching to Jira Service Management. And Bill, why don't you take us through what that process was like at Applied, how you decided on JSM, and kind of what's the story there?
Yeah, so we looked at a number of the kind of leading platforms, considered staying. We looked at JSM, and for us, really, JSM quickly emerged as a leader for our use case. And I had people on my team that had experience with Jira Service Desk from 10, 15 years ago, and they liked it, but they were basically saying, hey, it's a relatively basic product. And we were talking with our account teams and went to the Atlassian conference a couple of years back, and just to evaluate the JSM product. And what I was seeing is Atlassian had really turned a corner when it came to JSM. They were no longer creating a product that just did some basic ticketing for developers. They were actually making plays to move this into a fully enterprise ready platform. So we were seeing acquisitions that they were making around kind of Jira operations, so formerly Opsgenie. We were seeing acquisitions from Help. They had acquired an AI company. I forget the name of it, but they had acquired an AI company. They were making investments in reporting and kind of building out a whole data warehouse. So all these areas that were historically gaps for medium to large size enterprises, Atlassian was bringing those into their core product. They weren't trying to license these applications as separate add-ons. So if you were at the professional or enterprise level from a licensing perspective, you were getting everything under the hood that you needed to run your business. And what I also liked about Atlassian's approach is, I mean, their leadership got up on stage and talked about how they weren't trying to make Atlassian and JSM all things for every single person. And having done consulting for a number of years and worked across a few different companies, it's real obvious that every company has their own unique way of doing IT. So I mean, you can be ITIL based and you can have your core processes, but every company is going to have a little bit different uniqueness on how they're trying to solve and approach different problems. And on ServiceNow, what I was finding is it could be a little bit more difficult to try and get ServiceNow to function the way that your company needs to and function the way that your processes need to. You need to invest a lot in development and customization, and that could cause problems with future upgrades, moving from one release to the other. There's a lot of tech debt and having to recode and re-implement things that you might have done in the past. And Atlassian is taking a different approach. So what they're really going after is kind of that 80-90% that every company needs. And then they've got an open API, they've got an open marketplace where you can go tap into third-party vendors or even develop your own solutions to solve for specific problems or specific use cases that your company had. And I really liked that flexible approach of, we're going to bring the core components that you need, but we're going to give you the flexibility to very quickly and easily kind of pivot and make modifications to meet your business's need. On top of that, the other thing that I really liked, and I know I'm a little long-winded, but the thing I really liked is JSM was democratizing the ITSM platform for us. So we went from a kind of a centralized model where basically all requests had to go into IT, they'd go in a backlog, we'd have to vet them out, we'd have to do all the BA work and then kick it off to a vendor to go implement, do UAT cycle, and it was this long process. What JSM and what Atlassian has done with JSM is they have different levels and roles within your projects, and you've got a lot of self-service capabilities that are available to your different teams for the most common requests. So your ability to update and make new requests on your portals, your ability to create automations, to create dashboards and reporting, getting people trained with some very basic JQL, like so Jira Query Language, it unlocks a ton of capabilities across the business. So things that used to have to all come through IT to get implemented, We now, with some upfront training, we're able to take 70 to 80% of those requests and have the business users and have the teams that were operating as fulfillers be able to actually fulfill these different requests themselves. So it increased their agility, their speed to serving their customers, and it reduced the overhead that we had on our IT organization. So IT was now not just focused on, hey, let me change this request. We were more focused on, hey, I want to do an automation. I want to start streamlining this and start working on more higher value add type activities, which for us, that fit fantastic with our model of leadership doesn't want to give us a ton of money to run the platform, but they really want to see value props coming out of the platform. So being able to democratize and in this model that Atlassian was bringing to the table with JSM, it just made a lot more sense to us compared to your traditional ServiceNows or Remedies or Sherwell, like these products where you really, IT had to have an iron fist and had to have people just to meet the requirements and meet the requests.
Yeah, Bill, that's an amazing point. A lot to unpack there, but I'll go ahead and start at the base. Of course, just some of the key differences between ServiceNow and some of the Atlassian products, really starting with, like you mentioned, the ability to use that marketplace and really streamline. The difference between ServiceNow and Atlassian really on the integration side, ServiceNow has Integration Hub, some of the main apps that companies need, like DocuSign, AWS, and a lot of those different Workday and, the integrations that help businesses run are in that highest level integration package that starts between 200 and 265,000, which is, a big part of people's budgets. And from there, the Atlassian marketplace is a la carte. So really you can get all those integrations one by one, really to streamline, like you said, and really take off of some of the words that you used, better to, serve the customers and the employees that are using that platform. And really that is the base of the mountain. Really the next part is creating that better user experience. Because with that better user experience comes collaboration. And with collaboration comes better and improved efficiency and really able to lock in and improve some of that productivity. And once those productivity is really at that high RPM, that high miles per hour, and things are really pushing and going, and the sales are coming in, you overall are scaling a lot, easier because you're hiring more employees, you're, getting more consumables, non-consumables, laptops, things like that. You're creating more accounts, you're getting more licenses. And essentially, you're not overpaying for the things that you aren't using, overall making it the most cost-effective solution. So definitely giving your customers that better experience, your employees that better experience, and really just giving you that competitive advantage against some of your competitors within your own industries, within your own markets. I feel like Amanda would agree that's exactly what we're here to do. So, Amanda, if you want to chime in, kind of touch on some of that before we kind of move on to the next topic, I would love to let some of the, people here listening, watching know, how you feel about some of the cost effectiveness that, really comes with Atlassian.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, fast time to value is one of the major value propositions for the JSM and for our platform in general, and that theme can be carried throughout in many different places. It's fast time to value for your own people to be able to build the things that they need to serve their customers. It's fast time to value for your customers that are seeking, help from you. Even to your point, well, it's fast time to value to keep you competitive in your own industries and be able to grow your own business more and more. So just always that fast time to value is going to be able to reduce your costs overall.
Awesome discussion there. Okay, let's get on to the next question. Key features of Jira Service Management. So Bill, like always, we'll start with you. Talk to me about what key features kind of attracted you to the platform when you started using it, after your go live, what you're using, what your teams like to use, talk to me about that.
Yeah, so we use the incident capabilities, we use the request management capabilities. We've implemented change management on the platform. We've implemented asset management, so CMDB, both for kind of endpoints where we're just using the native insights kind of Jira database that's built in and available, as well as we've got device 42 that we're using for scanning and kind of managing our server environment. We've got that all synced back into JSM as well. So we're using Jira Operations, so formerly Outshines, as well. And then we've also built out a custom procurement module that we're using. So that's something that's a little bit unique for our use case, but has been super high value for us. I think things that we really like about the platform, and we've been seeing real quick value for us. The first one is the ability to take all of the Jira work, all of the JSM work, and we can build these project boards, and we can build these dashboards that bring it all into a single pane of glass. So when we historically were on ServiceNow, we had all of our incident or requests, so all of our transactional work was all coming through ServiceNow. All of our project-based work we were doing within Jira. And our managers were constantly coming into these scenarios where trying to balance operational work with project work, making sure that we've got equal allocations, that we have people working on the right things. It was difficult because we're trying to marry up the overall workloads across multiple systems. Bringing it all into a single point of view made it easy for our employees to see everything that they have on their plate in one single pane of glass. It gave managers a good opportunity to see what was going on, both with all of our ticketing, our KPIs, and our SLAs. We could build KPIs on our project work. We could get it all viewed in one single pane of glass, and it allowed us to see, hey, if we're spending too much time on project work, we could see our operational work taking a dip. If we're spending too much time on operations, we could see why our project work was starting to slow down. So having everything in one area gave us a ton of value from just people being able to know what they need to work on and also managing the work. We've got alerts coming from Jira Operations. Like a lot of teams, I've got engineering individuals that are not sitting all day inside of JSM watching their queue. They're working on high profile projects, but if we've got a high priority incident or an issue coming through, we need to be able to pull them away. That's real easy to do when you've got eyes on glass for like a help desk. But if you've got engineering teams that are splitting their work across project and operations, we use Jira Operations to send alerts to them in their preferred method. They can get it via Slack, they can get it via text message, a phone call, saying, hey, you've got a high priority issue that just came in. And it's getting us the ability to swarm onto those problems quicker and get the right people responding at the right time. And we can do it on schedule so that we're not hitting everybody all at the same time or hitting the right people at the right time. And the last thing, from a project management leadership perspective, we've also done integrations between JSM, Jira, and Confluence. So our executive leadership, we do all of our reporting and status updates and everything in Confluence. And in a past life, I've done project management. One of the things that annoyed me to no end was having to fill out my project reports in 5 different places for the 5 different people, like the teams that were working on the projects and then teams that were requesting status on the projects. There's a lot of double work that was going on. We've got it set up to where within JSM, our project managers are filling up all the updates within their, sorry, I keep getting texts. There we go. But we have everything set up to where within Jira and JSM, you fill out your updates in the ticket, and we've got things automatically syncing over into Confluence for executive reports. So it's making our project managers significantly more efficient and having less admin work. And it's putting all the information for our executives in a place that they know to go to. And it makes things significantly more effective and efficient for our teams.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks, Bill. I did want to touch on some of the key features in JSM that are coming out soon, or things that we can take advantage of and talk about. The first one, obviously, we wanted to talk about was Confluence. So the JSM does have an included knowledge base that is powered by Confluence. So, as Bill mentioned, it's a great way to be able to cross collaborate and be able to have good documentation available all within the same platform, sticking into that single pane of glass theory here. But the cool part that you can also do using Confluence and being able to kind of work that with JSM is to be able to put the virtual agent between your customers and Confluence. So what that looks like is being able to have Slack or the virtual agent in the portal that will be coming out in beta soon, be able to kind of query your Confluence environment or your knowledge base and attempt to be able to resolve a customer's issue before it even makes it to your technicians or your agents. So just having that back of Confluence incorporated into your environment and using the virtual agent, you're going to reduce the amount of tickets that your technicians are going to have to spend time on, especially things that are repeatable and can be solved easily through a how-to document that anyone can be able to execute on their own. The next one, Bill, you alluded to Opsgenie, now called JSM Operations. But yes, so Opsgenie, it was a product that we had acquired some time ago that is now fully kind of baked into the JSM platform product itself. You don't have to purchase it separately, and that all that operations experience is going to be included with your JSM product. So what that will do is give you the ability to have on call, like Bill said, being able to alert your technicians that there's a high priority incident. You'll be able to have on call schedules. You'll be able to use escalations if those go unanswered, all with the goal to resolve incidents faster ultimately. The next one that's worth noting is multiple help centers. So as we grow into the enterprise and as we continue to expand our products, we had multiple customers asking for the ability to create multiple different help centers that might be branded differently or be able to provide different areas of their business with capability and portals that are customized to them. But obviously, we all still want to stay within that same pane of glass. So that's a new feature that's in beta right now that you'll be able to set up multiple help centers within your organization, but still be on the same instance of JSM and be able to kind of not have that affect how your technicians are working those tickets. In the conversation of assets, the big one coming out soon is Data Manager. That will be coming out in beta very soon. The Atlassian strategy with Data Manager is that we want to meet you and your organizations where you are in terms of discovery. We don't want to add more costs and complexity and force you to buy a new discovery tool. We want to be able to meet you where you're at with the products that you're using today to discover the assets that need to come into JSM. So what Data Manager will be able to do is to pull in data from all the different places within your organization and be able to clean it, deduplicate it, normalize it, cleanse the data, make it look the way that it needs to look from all these different places and be able to bring that into JSM assets to do something meaningful with. So again, we want to meet our customers where they're at instead of asking them to make change even beyond the scope of our own platform. So we want to provide the ability to pull the data that you have today and make it more meaningful and clean and be able to do something with. And it goes without saying, mentioning our AI capabilities and the amazing things that are coming with Rovo. So AI is baked into our products through and through. You can find it in so many different ways, but we would be remiss not to talk about all the AI capabilities that can accelerate in so many different ways. The virtual agent was one that I already mentioned. So that uses AI capability to parse through your Confluence and make suggestions or recommendations to your customers on how they can resolve the issue that they're having. It increases your technician function or efficiency by being able to help technicians, write their responses back to customers in meaningful ways, summarize a ticket and what's already been done on it because it got passed to them as like a third tier support. So now they can use AI to go quickly summarize what has happened, what has already been discussed with the customer. AI can even be used from a technician standpoint in the administration of the tool. So there are AI capabilities baked into being able to writing automations or building automations. You can use AI to type in some common language to say what you want the automation to do, and it will output you, a starting point of an automation rule that you can then go tailor even further beyond that. So between Atlassian Intelligence and all the great things that are coming with Rovo, that you'll be able to pull in data and answers and meaningful information from even beyond the walls of the Atlassian platform. AI is just going to change the game for your entire organization, from that customer all the way down to your agents as well.
Amanda, I love assets. I love data manager. That's just a particular piece of ITSM, ESM that I've always been quite fond of. But it's hard not to think AI and Rovo is the favorite thing you mentioned, right? And with that, we get right into poll question number 2. You knew we were going to ask something about AI. We have to nowadays, the hottest thing in the industry. And so the next poll question should pop up just now. It is, what is the biggest challenge with implementing AI tools in your organization? And while you answer to that, just for a quick time check, we're about 33 minutes in to the webinar today. We've got one topic left for the panelists, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. So that'll be after this poll. So again, poll question number 2, all about AI. What's the biggest challenge in implementing AI tools in your organization? And we'll give it just 5 more seconds here, and then we'll look at the poll results and we'll get the panelists' thoughts on it. I'm very curious about this one. Okay, a little bit split. Walt, what do you think?
I think definitely the customization side of AI can be really, really hard. I know industry kind of conversation is really the permissions and the information that you give it. Overall, AI can be an amazing tool. We all kind of use it in our own everyday lives, but there is still the business factor there of a lot of unknowns. So I definitely feel a little bit of the uncertainty from our attendees today.
Bill, what do you think looking at these poll results? I know Applied has been looking at AI and embracing it. Does this surprise you from your own AI journey?
No, and I think it tends to vary across companies. So for us, we've actually staffed a specific AI team. We're building AI into our products that we create. And it definitely has been some interesting use cases for us. For us, it comes down to we've got some barriers to entry. So we look at data security, like making sure that our data is not being used to train language models and train these AI bots. Just because we don't want our proprietary information getting leaked out to competitor companies. So it's something that Atlassian has solved for. I know personally, I've got a lot of fear around what Walt talked about with the permissions. So as a company, people don't really think about security and permissions just in general. So a lot of your security around things that are in Confluence or SharePoint or other systems tends to be around obscurity, as opposed to just people don't know where to look to go find the information. AI is going to take a lot of that information and potentially make it more available and more readily available. So there's going to be a bit of a change moment, I think, that's going to happen across the industry, that people are going to realize that with information becoming so ubiquitous and so readily available, they need to think around who's the actual audience for the stuff that they're creating, because you post something public, AI can now start taking it and using it to build on top of it and provide information. And in 99% of the use cases, that's a fantastic thing. But those 1%ers, the small scenarios where you need to make sure you've got the right security and lockdown. So very, very interested to see how the industry starts to solve for this problem.
I know every time we've brought up AI and Rovo to customers, that's one of the first questions, right? Like, are we training off your data? Are we sharing your data with other customers? So that's going to be a big deal as AI kind of matures and products like Rovo come out. Okay, let's get right into the final question here today. And this is all about implementation and migration strategies for success, really. And so, Bill, like always, you take us away with the first answer. Can you speak to Applied Systems, what it was like? What was your implementation and migration like? How did it go? Which partner did you pick? Wink, wink.
Absolutely. So when we made the decision to cut over to JSM, so we evaluated a bunch of number of different partners, and we ended up selecting ISOS, and we did that selection based off of a couple of kind of key criteria. So the first one is JSM is actually pretty easy to implement. Like you could turn it on and be up and running on it in a weekend. I was hearing all these stories from different partners saying, yeah, we can get you up in a couple of days. And that actually scared me because the technology is simple enough to turn it on and get running with it fast, which is awesome for Agile. It's awesome for iterating and learning. But I had a large, our company's about 3,000 people. We had a lot of processes that were running through ServiceNow. So I wasn't so much worried about the technology implementation. I was worried more about the organizational change management. And ISOS actually brought to the table a really good understanding of what it takes to get a company that has been on ServiceNow, and what are those change moments? What are those things that are different about JSM that you should be changing a little bit of your thought process, and you should be looking to make some updates in how you implement certain things. I viewed ISOS as a company that wasn't just an expert on JSM, but they had people that had expertise on ServiceNow, and they'd taken a lot of companies on that journey from ServiceNow to JSM. They could help provide that guidance for us. So there's my plug on ISOS. They did a good job from that perspective. But the kind of the key things for our migration that allowed it to go really well. The first one was everybody's going to have to make a decision around your legacy data. So your current platform, you've got to make a decision on if you want to take data out of that platform and try to basically do an ETL process and load it into JSM. That's going to take weeks, if not months, of time trying to map the different data structures and get it set up appropriately. And it's something that in my career I've viewed as a very low value added process. So very rarely do teams actually go look back at data that's more than a couple of months old. And it's usually just for some executive reporting perspectives. Unless you're in a audited industry where you have like GXP data or other compliance requirements that require you to hold on to that data, you don't typically get a lot of value out of spending all those engineering hours transforming the data and getting into the system. You're actually much better set up to say, hey, let me just take an export of my ServiceNow data and toss it into a SQL database on a VM that I can just turn off. And if I ever need to go back to it, I can turn it back on. Or if you've got a data warehouse, you can dump it into the data warehouse and you can query the data at a later date if you need to go back and use something. So that's an effort that you can do in like a day or two, as opposed to weeks and months of effort for doing the ETL process. So we did not migrate our data. And in 2.5 years, I've had one person come back to me and say, hey, I need to go look at a ticket. And I say, yeah, it's going to take us a little while to get that. Do you really need it? And they said, no, it would have been nice. So it really hasn't proven out that we ever needed that historical data for anything. So once we got past that, the next real big thing for success in our migration is we brought all our stakeholders in really early on. So like I said earlier, we were shifting our model to be more democratized. We wanted more kind of input from the different business units that were going to be using the platform. This wasn't going to be an IT has implemented JSM and then just dropped it on you and you got to go figure it out. We wanted the teams to come in, work with us and work with ISOs to understand our business processes, what they were trying to accomplish, and really have them in the door from day one, providing their requirements and their feedback, as opposed to IT trying to guess what the different business units need, or even worse, just trying to 100% replicate exactly what was in ServiceNow and try to do it in JSM. By having the teams getting involved in those business processes and what they were trying to accomplish and talking to us about it, we were able to actually have our solution architects understand the requirements and build how we could best do this within JSM, and then also educate the teams early on, hey, there's going to be you're used to seeing data this way. We're going to present it in this fashion. We're going to update the process. And what was a real cool feedback item is I was hearing this over and over again in these sessions with the business. We're like, wait, we can have this request. We've had that in backlog for 6 months, a year and a half. We've been wanting to do this. You're telling me that we can just get this on day one when we turn the product on? Like, yeah, absolutely. And so we got a lot of really quick wins that were not hard for our implementation team to do. And it really paved the way for a successful go live. So just across the board, it was pretty smooth. So don't bring your data in, bring your teams together early on, talk about processes. And as I said earlier, it's not a hard product to stand up quickly, especially when you've got subject matter experts that can come in the door and help you with those implementations and how to make those transformations. It can go super, super smooth, which for us, it really did.
Yeah. And from the Atlassian perspective, of course, what is best practice? What do we recommend? Honestly, it's echoing a lot of the same points that Bill just made. So on our side, we really like to see it more as a transformation of your business and how you use your ITSM tools. It's not a lift and shift, and you should not be building exactly as it was in ServiceNow or whatever tool you're using. The recommendation is just that, embrace the more modern way of working, embrace the more team-centric organization of your work that will probably feel very different than what you've been seeing in your other tools that you're using. Really be focused on the objective and the goal of what you're trying to build and what customizations you're asking for. And then let solution partners like ISOs be able to tell you how it's going to be done. They have the expertise to tell you what the best way is, the solution for that. So we recommend that you really embrace the ability to take this time and evaluate what you're doing today and how that needs to be done going forward, or what still needs to be remaining as you move away from your old system. Architecturally, we do recommend that everyone stay in a single instance, just continuing to echo that point of a single pane of glass. However, again, as we move into the enterprise, larger customers, global scale organizations, there are a lot of really good, compelling reasons from a security perspective, data residency, that might drive you to have a need for multiple instances of your Atlassian products. So working with ISOs or your solution partners to be able to tell you, what the best recommendation is and what are the trade-offs of doing these different things. And ultimately having ISOs come and tell you, what the best way is to have those products still work together if they are in multiple instances. So just leaning into the advice and the expertise of ISOs here. And then lastly, the last recommendation is just to keep it practical, be open to simplifying, be open to, really understanding the business value of what you're trying to do. The point I was going to make was about data migration that Bill did a really great job explaining. But just that, unless you have some compelling reason or a compliance or a regulation that you have to retain this data, we really recommend taking the time to think about the value that data is going to provide and consider putting it into maybe a separate data warehouse somewhere, just because that transformation into JSM, is going to take a lot of time to be able to map the data from your old system into what it might look like in your current system. So beyond just the validity of the data, the effort to be able to say what was in my old system is this in my new system, I think that might be more challenging than you're anticipating initially. So we really recommend taking a good look at that data and coming up with some options of how you want to get that data, stored somewhere and kept for safekeeping in case you do have that one person that wants to look at a ticket from, 2 years ago.
Yeah. And Amanda, that's an amazing point. Really the best analogy that I've heard since starting here at ISOS is, if you're looking at ServiceNow and some of their partners, it's kind of like buying a car. where you go onto the lot and they have a couple of different models, and maybe none of those models are really the one that you want. But working with Atlassian and ISOs, it's like building a custom-made card that really fits your needs, really to the best of its like capabilities, really making sure that you get everything you need out of the system. And that really starts, with our partnership and really how we address clients from the very start. So that really, the ISO's best practice way that we kind of go through it is a really comprehensive assessment. Like you said, really understanding what your system really looks like, where some of that data is being stored, really what that data kind of looks like. And we get really granular. Sometimes we ask for reverse demos. We love to see what your portal looks like. We love to see what you don't like, what some of those bottlenecks are, so that Bill said, we're really not bringing over everything from ServiceNow and copying the system. We're bringing over the best parts and then building on what's already existing. And then from there, we define some of those clear objectives, really see, well, what do you want this to look like a year from now? What are some metrics that you're looking to really lower or increase based off like really making this change? And from that, moves on to the next part of it. Well, if we, can build something that really makes this solution to some of these problems, that can change some of these metrics, that can improve some of these KPIs, this is something we definitely want to get some of your stakeholders involved in. And then once it's, fully implemented and, really Bill talked about it, you need time to get training from the people who built the system so that you're not constantly reliant on them. And I feel like, from working in the ServiceNow ecosystem, the reliance on the partner is really sometimes an inconvenience when things don't go right. So really focusing on that integration, making sure that all the different marketplace apps, making sure all the APIs, everything is just really strong, while also adopting those ITIL best practices, those agile best practices, and making sure that everything works correctly, that your teams are flowing, and overall you're saving on the budget, you're increasing productivity. Amanda, I'm sure you'll agree, Bill, you'll agree that, of course, Atlassian, really the solutions are built to be streamlined and increase in all of those metrics. And of course, with ISOs, all of those capabilities and really all those solutions are definitely a possibility.
100%. And only thing I'd like to add, just to talk a little bit about ISOs, who we are. Thank you for everyone for joining the webinar today, by the way. We've got 10 minutes left, so quick ISO slide, one final poll, some things I want you to take away, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. But I've almost nothing extra to add, right? You've heard some great stuff from Walt and from Bill and from Amanda. The only extra thing with this slide is we've been in business a real long time. We're the highest decorated ITSM partner from Atlassian. And part of that reasoning you've heard from Bill and Walt. So we believe in partnerships, but we also believe in challenging you. We don't just do exactly what you tell us. We come in and say, hey, we've seen these things be successful. You should do this because of XYZ, because this client in your industry or this customer close to your size. So that's one of the biggest things I wanted to emphasize with this slide. So you can see the awards, but listening to Bill and Walt, it's that experience, that opinionated approach is the reason why we're successful and why our customers are really happy with us. And so with that, let's get into poll question number 3, which might seem obvious now that you've been on this webinar, but are you considering switching to a new ITSM platform in the next 12 months? Single choice, yes, no, unsure. But I'm really curious on this one, right? I would, oh, you know what? Let me not give my opinion just yet. I don't want to influence anyone. Let me not give an opinion, but we'll let this one go quick because I want to leave time for questions. So, all right, let's wrap up the poll here and see what the results are. Even split, 2 yeses, 2 nos. And so the yeses make perfect sense to me, but I wonder, and feel free, post this in the comments in the Q&A. Is the no for you need longer than 12 months to evaluate? Is the no that you're happy with your current tool? And if it's not JSM, I'd be curious what you're thinking on, but I'm not letting the panelists comment this time. We're just going to keep on rocking because of the time. And next is a couple of things I want you to take away. So the first 2, I think, are the most interesting, especially for those people who said yes, and especially for those people who said no. We've got a free assessment. That's on the left-hand side. All you need to do is click the form, fill it out. You'll get a free meeting with one of our experts. Spoiler alert, you met him, it's Walt. Get on the phone with you, evaluate your instance, see what you got going on, and really help you paint a picture of how you might migrate. And for those of you who are on ServiceNow, great. If you're not on ServiceNow, great. Fill out the form. We've kind of migrated off of almost every tool under the sun. Fill it out. We'll get with you. This is all free. There's no cost, and we'll at least paint that picture of how you can migrate. For those of you who want maybe more of something to chew on, read through, you've got the Case for Jira Service Management white paper on the right-hand side as well. And then some additional resources, just 2 more pamphlets for you to look through, papers, etc. 1 white paper, why you should use an Atlassian partner to implement and optimize your Atlassian tools. And then the second one is a case study, an online job search platform partners with ISO's technology to replace ServiceNow with JSM. That was a pretty large migration. So especially if you're on ServiceNow and you've migrated or you're worried about migrating a large instance, that's a great case study to look at. Okay, so we've got about 7 minutes left. Let's begin the Q&A. And again, the Q&A section is right there in your Zoom screen. Feel free to pop stuff in. And with our first Q&A, Walt, this one is going to be perfect for you. So the first question is, how does Jira Service Management compare in terms of cost and ROI when switching from a legacy tool like ServiceNow? Walt, like I said, I want you to speak first. We talked about this a little bit throughout the panel today, but give me a little bit more. Go a little bit more in depth. What does it really look like? Are we talking 2x, 3x savings? Like, what have you seen in your customers?
Sometimes that the license cost in comparison to Atlassian can be 5x. So, it's, for every 1 license of, ServiceNow, you could almost get 5 licenses of Atlassian. And then in terms of implementation costs, sometimes those implementation costs can be 2x to 3x. It's like the more integrations you might need, it makes it more expensive, the bigger your teams. And then it really, some of these very small add-ons, if you want analytics, if you want, specialized dashboards, ServiceNow really finds a way to tack on those costs for absolutely everything. So it can be a much more significant hit to the budget to overall adopt and, take on ServiceNow.
Absolutely. I've seen very similar numbers myself, even other tools too, like, BMC Remedy, Sharewell, like there's some crazy costs out there. And I think part of the fun with Atlassian, and I literally mean fun, is the pricing so easy to understand. So in comparison to some of these other legacy pricing systems, you're literally having fun because it's just so easy to explain. Whereas, like, I remember back in the day, there was a particular vendor that named their pricing a lot around colors. So you needed 10 red licenses, 20 blue licenses, just like completely incomprehensible, and also much more expensive than Atlassian is.
Fulfillers,
okay.
Subscriber.
Oh yeah, different name for everything, right? Okay, let's go with the next question here, which is, how does JSM help organizations future-proof their IT service management strategy as needs evolve? Amanda, that sounds like the perfect one for you to answer to. Yeah, Amanda, you're still on mute.
Oh, yep. Sorry. I was looking at your questions. So how does JSM future-proof IT service management strategies as their needs evolve? So JSM really helps future-proof IT service management strategies by really allowing people to be able to adapt and change. So I think the biggest thing with their service management strategy is being able to ebb and flow with those changes that are being asked of you. I spent 8 years in doing Sharewell consulting, and there were so many times where the response was like, well, that's how we've been doing it, and we've spent X amount of dollars building it this way in the product that we have today. So it would be a really big change for us to do something differently. So we just kind of need to keep going with that, or it's going to cost a lot more money to undo this whole process. We're already down the road. So JSM being able to give you the ability to adapt and change as your business needs change is really going to allow your service management team of folks to be able to meet the strategy, continue to be adopting new strategies, incorporating AI, focusing on projects otherwise rather than just keeping a system going. They'll be able to focus on things that are going to add more and more value and exponentially add more value over time.
I can jump in on that one as well. Just from a customer perspective, what I've So what I've seen that Atlassian is doing better than a lot of other companies is I've probably been on 3 or 4 calls just since the last Atlassian conference, talking to product teams about how we're using the product, where we're seeing gaps, what are things that we need. There's a lot more involvement from a product management perspective in Atlassian as far as how they're reaching out and talking to their customers and really starting to pull in requirements than what I've seen at other organizations. So there's definitely that side of the house, and then I've also seen a significant amount of hiring of outside experts that have expertise with other product lines that are competing in these spaces. So I mean, one of the things that Atlassian does that seems to be a little bit unique to a lot of companies is they start with kind of theory and culture and ways of working first, and then they figure out tools that can help unlock those different methods of working, and they tend to be on the bleeding edge of I think they call them like run books or playbooks. They actually have it up on the Atlassian site where there's a lot of different methodologies in which you can go implement ways of solving common company problems using the Atlassian platform. And it's a great resource, something that you typically would have to go like pay for like Gartner subscription or like a Forrester subscription. Atlassian has a lot of that information. And
I love that.
Yeah,
that's a great point. I think inherently we just believe that people are, at the center of it all. And so, it's a people problem, the tool helps facilitate that. But yeah, there's lots of run books, there's lots of exercises out on our website to be able to tackle those team problems that are happening across your organization first. And then the tool will be able to facilitate that. And then in terms of like product and, the product teams wanting to know how you're using the tools, I would say, I think Atlassian really is focused on, making sure that we're polling our customers for what's working, what's not working, what's missing, and being able to adapt our roadmap and what our priorities are as we go to fit the needs of what our customers are asking for today. So shameless plug to say that if you've looked at Atlassian's roadmap in the past and maybe determined that there was something missing or there wasn't a fit, encourage you to go back and look at it, because our roadmap changes so often. We are always rolling out new things. So what might have been the case a couple of years ago is probably very, very different today. And even 6 months from now, our strategy could be more and more improved, and things are going to be there that aren't there today. So just always keep an eye out, and we always adapt.
Awesome.
Yeah. Doug, did you have go ahead.
I was gonna end the webinar, so get your comment in there quick, Walt.
How long was Bill's ROI payback, or is he still paying for the transition?
No, within the first year. So what we were saving from our ServiceNow renewals, the implementation costs plus the licensing, I mean, we got it all back within the first year.
Amazing.
So,
okay.
And that's on top of us adding additional capabilities we didn't have in ServiceNow.
Yeah. And just to wrap it up, we also have cost benefit analysis capability. So if you are currently on ServiceNow, we can do a cost benefit analysis, see how much money you could potentially be saving, and then give you an ROI kind of calculator on some of those business savings from that migration.
Awesome. Okay, so we're about 1 minute over on the time. I know there's still some open Q&A answers. Amanda, I actually see you answering one right now.
Yep.
If we did not get to your answer, we will follow up anyway, just to make sure we can speak to that Q&A. So number one, Amanda, Bill, Walt, thank you for your time today. Thank you for joining us. And for everyone who attended, thank you. Like I mentioned, the recording will be sent out, so you'll have that handy to rewatch or send it to anyone in your organization. And feel free to follow up with us for more information.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, folks.